There were 16 different comic books on the newsstands with a cover date of May 1937. The most important news series debuting that month was Feature Books. Number 1 featured King of the Royal Mounted. It was published by David McKay. This historic title was the first U.S. comic book to devote complete issues to different characters. This was the first time this had been attempted in the modern comic book market. There had been 2 no-number issues before the series was officially numbered each issue. So this is the number 1 issue, cover dated May 1937. The first 25 issues were oversized black and white comics. Feature book was from the David McKay Company. They were also instrumental in the Mickey Mouse merchandising, printing many of the Mickey Mouse comics throughout the 1930s. Lulu number 1 was a new mature magazine from Sun Publications, printed in Chicago, Illinois, 25-cent cover price, 52 pages, edited by Don Ulsh, black and white, interior, saddle-stitched, an ongoing series. It would run 21 issues from 1937 to 1941. The cover logo on the first issue read, "It's a Lulu." The issues were filled with body, one-panel gags and jokes containing adult content, mature type of humor. Pencils by Don Ulsh on the cover of number 1. Ace Comics number 2 had a cover date of May 1937. It featured the second appearance in comic book format of Jungle Jim by Alex Raymond, Blondie by Chick Young, also Crazy Cat. All 3 characters appear in all 151 issues of the series Ace Comics, which was a series published by David McKay Publications from 1937 to 1949, containing some newspaper strip reprints. Number 2 also featured appearances by Tex Thorne, Tilly the Toiler, Etta Kett, Blondie, Ripley's Believe It or Not, and many more. Sea and Stars ran in the first 50 issues, featuring Hollywood movie stars, The Adventures of Orphan Tim Tyler in Tim Tyler's Luck, and Curly Harper at Lakespur, both by Blondie writer-artist Chick Young's brother Lyman Young, appeared. Tim Tyler's Luck ran in every issue of Ace Comics, while the Curly Harper strip ended with issue 100. The Blondie strip also appeared in every issue of Ace Comics, as did the classic humor strip The Katzenjammer Kids by Rudolph Dirks. Don Winslow of the Navy, number 2 from Merwill Publishing, with a cover date of May 1937. This was the final issue of only 2 issues in this series from Merwill Publishing. It was a hybrid pulp and comic. 16 pages of comics in color with a complete Don Winslow novel inside. DC great Sheldon Mayer contributed interior art. One of the first modern comic books ever published with a single character as the focus. Don Winslow of the Navy was an American comic strip created by Frank Victor Martinek and distributed by the Bell Syndicate from 1934 to 1955. Detective Comics number 3 had a cover date of May 1937 from DC Comics, at the time called National Allied. Overstreet calls this a rare issue, while Gerber called it very rare with a rating of 9, signifying that less than 10 copies exist. The Overstreet price guide does not list a grade for higher than VF, therefore it doesn't rank as high in the top 100 Golden Age comics list as it might otherwise. Greg Flessel provided the Jailbird in the Spotlight cover and interior art for the issue. Joe Shuster and Sven Elvin also have art. Some of the highlights include a cover from Craig Flessel featuring convicts. Craig Flessel was the writer and artist on Speed Saunders, a 7-page story detective mystery. Captain E.R. Anthony wrote a 6-page story called Shooting Lesson, which also featured Craig Flessel artwork. Siegel and Schuster teamed up for the 4-page Spy story, and Jerry Siegel worked with writer Jim Bettersworth on a 13-page Slam Bradley story. This was the first time Siegel and Schuster were separated. And the Slam Bradley story featured Shorty, Darcy, and Pumelli. Jim Bettersworth was a gag cartoonist for Boy's Life in 1938 and 39, and he drew the feature Slam Bradley for National in Detective Comics in 1937. Star Comics number 3, cover dated May 1937, was published by Chesler Comics. It featured a cover art by Dick Ryan, a bit of a racist cover. Professor McScrewy was a 1-page story from writer and artist Fred Gardner using the alias FBG. And this was also another big issue for Gardner, who gave us the 6-page Dan Hastings story written by Ken Fitch, art by Gardenier. This was a sci-fi story. And they also worked on Penny Auntie, which is a 2-page story penciled by John Lindermeyer. Penny Auntie was a 2-page strip from writer-artist John Lindermeyer, a humor story featuring the character Penny Auntie. John Lindermeyer worked through the Harry A. Chesler shop and the Eisner Eiger studio. In 1935-36, he published by National Allied's New Fun, doing features like Pelion and Osa and Oswald the Rabbit. In 1939, he did a feature called Denny Scott of the Bengal Tigers for Mystery Men Comics by Fox Comics. He also did various Centaur features such as Granny and Her Pets, Penny Auntie, and Speedway. In Quality's Hit Comics, he did the Jack and Jill feature in 1940. Star Ranger number 3, cover dated May 1937 from Chesler Comics, featured cover art by Fred Schwab. Some of the highlights include The Buffalo, a 1-page story written by Will Haar with art by Fred Gardenier. Lion Lou is a 2-page story written and drawn by Fred Gardenier, as well as Maverick Puncher, a 4-page story written and drawn by Fred Gardenier. And he also gave us Wagon Trail, a 3-page story which he wrote under the alias of FBG. The Comics number 3 was published by Dell Comics with a cover date of May 1937. This was the 3rd series from Dell Comics, reprinting popular newspaper strips of the day. It features early appearances of Tom Mix, Wash Tubbs, and Myra North. This issue featured reprints from comic strip dailies and from recent Big Little books. Some of the highlights include Wash Tub in a cover from Sheldon Mayer, it's believed, featuring the character Captain Easy. There's a 4-page Alley Oop and Dinny story, a sci-fi adventure written and drawn by V.T. Hamlin. In the Name of the Law was a 3-page story written by William Engel with pencils by Henry Vallely. This is a non-fiction crime story featuring the character Legs, reprinted from Big Little Book 1155. Henry Vallely, born 1881, lived until 1950. He was an artist for fashion and women magazines, Big Little Books, and comics. International Spy, featuring Dr. Doom, was a 3-page story from writer Conrad Vane, with pencils presumed to be by Jim Gary, who was born in 1905, who worked at the commercial department of King Features Syndicate, where he illustrated book covers for adventure novels. In the mid-30s, he worked with Stefan Schlesinger on series for Whitman Publishing, illustrating the cowboy comic G-Men and adaptations of Boris Karloff's series. For Popular Comics and Crackerjack Funnies, he drew the adventure of the Chinese detective Mr. Wong. From 1939, Jim Gary was the artist of the King of the Royal Mounted comic. Created originally as a Sunday page by author Zane Grey and artist Alan Dean in 1935, Jim Gary took over the comic from Dean's successor Charles Flanders. A daily feature had already been added to the Sunday page by that time, and Gary drew both until 1955. He was also the assistant of Fred Harmon on Red Ryder from 1938 to 1962. Famous Funnies number 34, published by Eastern Color, had a cover date of May 1937. Featured cover art by Victor Pazmino featuring the characters Sam Smithers and Cam O'Flage. Some of the highlights include War on Crime, a 4-page story written by Rex Collier, pencils believed to be by Kemp Starrett. And Kemp Starrett lived 1890 to 1952. He was a newspaper cartoonist and comic strip artist. He drew the Roy Powers Eagle Scout strip during the first year of its run until it was taken over by Frank Godwin, another artist for The Ledger. For this newspaper, The Ledger, he worked on features like Babe Bunting and War on Crime. His longest running series was Vignettes of Life, which he drew from 1939 to 1952. Some other highlights of this issue include Queenie, written and drawn by S.M. Iger under the alias Bob Bliss. Fisher's History of Boxing was written by Ham Fisher, which with pencils by believed to be Al Cap under the pseudonym of Ham Fisher. Joe Palooka was also written by Ham Fisher, and it's believed Al Cap was the artist, using Ham Fisher as his alias again. Bobby was another story from S.M. Iger, and it was copywritten by Eisner Iger. Buck Rogers was featured in a 4-page story written by Philip Francis Nolan with pencils by Rick Yeager under the alias of Dick Calkins in this sci-fi classic.